live under a rock, you know that the Middle East has basically completely fallen apart. They're executing our allied fighting partners, and now I hear that the Taliban has actually seized the classified biometric system to identify where every ally is in the region. In the last 2 decades, $2 trillion of effort, human capital, resources have been pretty much all been for nothing at this point. Now, keep in mind that this is the same government, the same U.S. government that doesn't trust you and I with an AR-15, but they just left drones, choppers, strikers, and enough weapons to sink the Titanic behind for the Taliban to just acquire, I guess? I mean, super, right? Oh, BT Dubs this morning, they didn't even know how many Americans were left behind.
How many Americans do you believe to be in Afghanistan right now?
Well, we think there are certainly thousands of Americans. We don't have an exact count. I would say somewhere, best guess, between 5,000 and 10,000 that are near Kabul.
I mean, stunning act of journalism from that network. I mean, I guess even a blind squirrel finds a nut. But you don't know how many Americans are left behind? This is like rule number 1 on any deployment scenario. Head count. For God's sakes, we learned this in elementary school, but it's okay. Jen Psaki decided to take my advice and cut her vacation short to pick up the Pentagon slack.
I should tell you is that there are individuals who will self-identify as American citizens. That number is around 11,000.
Oh, they're self-identifying. Fantastic. I mean, they're in full scramble mode to get people out of there, and they should be. CBS reports that those applying for evacuation received this email. An undefined number of U.S. government-provided flights will begin soon. Please be advised that the United States government cannot guarantee your safety as you make this trip. Are you? I mean, Jen Psaki also says that they're not determined yet when Joe Biden will be returning home from Camp David, when he scurried back there like a minute after his press conference where he took no questions whatsoever. This is like a pathetic attempt at leadership yesterday afternoon. I mean, what is even more crazy is while all this is, this is a massive, huge deal, but it would be even a bigger deal if the home front wasn't also an epic dumpster fire also. I mean, normally the general population, I include myself in this, is like a lobster to bad policies. We don't really notice we're getting boiled, very slowly until it's too late. But Biden, the guy just like threw us right into the boiling water. His policies came at us so fast, I think that some of us are still in shock. All he had to do was nothing and just coast on Trump's coattails. It would have been fine. This was always kind of what I told folks on the campaign trail, too, that, hey, look, nothing moves fast in D.C., for good, for bad. Don't overpromise on your first run at a campaign trail. Turns out I may have been wrong about that. Biden flushed this economy down the toilet faster than a cheetah on cocaine. Now, remember when Democrats promised, though, that spending wouldn't result in inflation? This is from the latest numbers. U.S. inflation is still running high, and it doesn't look like it's going to fade fast anytime soon. So the Democrats were wrong again, shockingly enough. It's not like one Democrat ever, I just don't know any, that have ever had a coherent, successful policy on the economy. I'm serious about this. The cost of living, as measured by the CPI, has jumped 5.4% in the past year to mark the biggest increase in 13 years. Let me say that again, 13 years, before Trump was president. And even if you want to go out and get a job, good luck. A lot of them went under. And the ones that didn't are struggling because they can't find entry-level workers because the government is paying them more money to stay home than they would if they actually got off their butt and went to work. Turns out, if you pay people not to work, that's exactly what they do. And if this isn't bad enough, the Democrats want to light another $4.5 trillion on fire to do some infrastructure-ish stuff. They can only point to about 1/10 of it going to actual infrastructure. The rest is, nobody really knows where the rest is going. Remember that Keystone pipeline, too, that was going to pump just a ton of oil from Canada down to Texas? Yep, Biden canceled that one, too. From the time that Biden took office, it costs a lot more to fill your gas tank. Here's a chart down here. All of Biden's incompetence ties together, though. We're no longer producing enough oil, so our prices are skyrocketing. It's like supply and demand. It's a pretty simple concept. Then the administration turns to OPEC, which are not exactly our friends, to ask them to produce more oil. And looking at our diminished stature in the world stage, it's no wonder that the Saudis were like, no, we're going to go ahead and reject that call, and you're on your own. The bottom line is it costs more for you and I to live our lives, and we haven't seen the growth in wages to keep up with it. This should be every single Republican's platform. On anything. Hi, I'm the Republican. I'll not raise your taxes to pay for dumb stuff. That thing over there you call the Democrat? Well, end of story. should be a winning platform. There's no reason that these should be a 50-50 elections anymore. Oh, and China?
Obviously, China is a threat to the world in a sense because they're building a military faster than anybody. And frankly, they're using U.S. money.
I mean, we're going to have a lot more on this in our China series later in the show and throughout the rest of the week. But China is making an even bigger push for global power, including jumping right into Afghanistan. Sure, they're imprisoning 1 million Uyghur Muslims in re-education camps, but hey, they met with Taliban leaders. Anyway, can't wait to see what they do to all the American debt now. It's going to be interesting. Actually, I'm kind of surprised, though, Joe didn't consult Hunter Biden to negotiate it.
He's a grown man. He is the smartest man I know. I mean, in sort of pure intellectual capacity.
You can't. Smartest guy Joe knows. I mean, I wonder how many people does he have in his jitterbug contact list? 2? All right, so don't forget our southern border. Remember this?
It happens every single solitary year. There is a significant increase in the number of people coming to the border in the winter months of January, February, March. It happens every year.
In the month of July, one of the hottest months of the year, okay? You know, when historically lower border crossings, there's even more border crossings than ever before. Oh, and by the way, in some areas, 30 to 40% of the migrants are testing positive for COVID. So, hey, whatever. I guess walls don't work. Let's just let everybody in. That seems to be our policy now. Because in America, you can just walk right across the border, get bused or flown to just about anywhere you want if you're an illegal immigrant on the taxpayer's dime. But if you're an American citizen in, here in Manhattan, don't you dare try to sit down to a diner without showing the papers. I mean, civil liberties have basically been wiped off the map. Consider this for a moment. We live in a world where the spokesman for the Taliban can spread their propaganda and war updates on Twitter. Twitter is an American company, mind you, but the former president of the United States, America, is still banned. Are you awake yet? And when a CNN network, the network that their origins were literally founded on war coverage, is standing in the middle of the Taliban, decked out in full hijab, mind you that 2 days earlier, she wasn't covered at all, telling us that while the Taliban is in fact taking over, it's pretty nice and peaceful. Same people that stood in front of the building, the burning building, said it was mostly peaceful. I mean, forgive me, but this is why people think your network is a crock.
Chanting death to America, but they seem friendly at the same time. It's utterly bizarre.
No, what's utterly bizarre is that statement. I mean, most popular president in history, I guess. Hogan, I'm sure you got a whole lot to say about this, but, I first want to ask you, the world is on fire, literally. The economy in America is basically snuffed out. And, Biden just goes back to Camp David like he's got nothing else to do. What is going on here?
I was watching the Open there, and it just reminded me of so many bad things going on in this country and across the world right now, all because of Joe Biden. Folks, policies matter. And Donald Trump implemented policies that impacted the lives of all Americans, making them better, regardless of race, religion, color, or creed. And now we have someone like Joe Biden in office who has systematically gone to erode every single record-setting success from the previous administration for reasons unknown. I don't understand what he's trying to accomplish. And even in the Afghanistan issue, it's so dangerous and so sad to watch what has happened when so many of our American soldiers, men and women in uniform, fought and died for that cause.
Yeah.
To watch this all blow away like the spores of a dandelion in just seconds is so debilitatingly, it's angering for someone like me to watch it happen. And one more thing I'll say, Joe Biden still blamed the Afghanis and still blamed President Trump, saying there was a deal in place. Folks, Joe Biden got rid of every single deal we had with the Triangle countries, with Mexico, got back into the Paris Climate Accord, the Iranian nuclear deal. So he got rid of everything. And for some reason, he was hamstrung by that deal. Give me a break. He owns this. It's his fault, whether it be the economy, the southern border, or Afghanistan, and the American people know it.
Yeah, Hogan, but they plan for every contingency. I mean, what?
Right. Yeah.
Exactly. So, you know, when Kamala Harris was a senator, and actually she was running for VP, there was not a single camera that she didn't like. She got in front of everyone, said everything she could against Trump. Where the heck is she now? Is she like gone? Did she leave the country? Is she in Afghanistan? I have no idea where she is.
Well, the administration did plan for every contingency, except for the media asking them some difficult questions. They never thought that was going to happen. Kamala Harris, though, is a chief example of that. I mean, she was named to control the border. That's obviously a disaster. She was named to head all types of things that ended up being problematic for the American people. And now with this issue, you know, I tweeted something about this today. You know, the Taliban issued a statement saying that the women would be fine under Islamic law. Well, we all know what that means. We know what Islam does to women and how they treat women. I've yet to hear anything from all of those incredible advocates for women's rights across the globe, like Nancy Pelosi, like the Squad, of course, and Kamala Harris. Not saying a word about what's about to happen to women. It exposes them for being complete and total frauds.
And, you know, and I say this time again, this was, I mean, look, as the first female VP, great. You know, she had a unique opportunity, like you said. And like when you're the vice president, you basically have two jobs: make the president look good and don't die. Those are your jobs. And you, at this point, she had every opportunity to, you know, on the border. All she had to do was just not stop what Trump was doing, and she could have made it look great. I mean, it is epic. And now she wants to just be completely vacant. Is she just biding her time, hoping that Biden is no longer capable to execute the duties so she can assume the presidency?
Well, I don't know. She has to hope much longer. It seems like President Biden isn't capable of the duties he swore an oath to actually implement and do as president of the United States. We often see Kamala Harris off to the side for every single President Biden press conference. She absolutely decides to make comments, you know, boasting about the fact she was in the room, the last person that Joe Biden spoke with before he made the decision on Afghanistan. But yet, when the chips fall where they're falling and the whole country is in collapse and the American citizens over there are facing potential death, the folks who helped out our soldiers also marked for death, she's silent. I think that is extremely telling about this administration. It's extremely telling about who Kamala Harris is as a person as well, and we're in serious trouble.
Yeah, you know, what's crazy to me is the Pentagon spokesman had absolutely no clue when they asked him, you know, how many people are still in Afghanistan, how many he was like, I don't know, thousands, 5,000, 10,000. Turns out to be 11,000.
That's a big gap.
He was off by 100%. Yeah,
that's right. That's right. 5,000 to 10,000. Also, how many people are coming across the border that you know, gotaways? No idea there. How many people are in this country illegally? No idea there. They don't have any of this information. It should be terrifying to most Americans. And I think after this, you know, 7-month time period, people are really concerned, and they ought to be. Yeah, it's staggeringly shocking to me. I'm beside myself. I really wish we had an administration that really actually cared about putting America first. If only there was someone telling you, warning you that this was going to be the case. If only there were people out there like myself and a former president saying, watch out, this is going to happen. I mean, talk about Nostradamus. I mean, he's been right on every single thing. Who could have possibly seen this coming? Hogan Gidley, thank you for your time. We appreciate it. Sure. All right. Well, the Biden administration could soon advise fully vaccinated Americans to get a COVID-19 booster shot. Now, a source familiar with the discussions among the administration's health experts told the Washington Post that they'll start recommending Americans, especially with compromised immune systems, to take a booster shot 8 months after their last vaccine. So joining us now to discuss is Georgia Congressman Buddy Carter, member of the GOP Doctors Caucus. You are an actual doctor, sir. We appreciate you coming on. I got to ask you, we were told that the vaccine was effective against the Delta variant. Now fully vaccinated people will soon need to get a booster shot. I mean, does it ever end on the personal invasion of, you know, the government telling you what to do, not just on this issue, but across the board?
Well, that's a good point. Look, I'm a strong advocate for the vaccines. I went through the clinical trials myself, and I've actually 3 weeks ago I got the booster shot, and I encourage everyone to get the vaccine. It is safe and it is effective, but this should be a decision that's made between a patient and a doctor, a patient and a pharmacist, patient and their family, or maybe their religious leader, not between a patient and the government. That's not who should be making the decision. But I do advocate for the vaccine. Listen, vaccines are the single most life-saving innovation in the history of medicine. Vaccines have saved more lives than any medication has ever saved, and they are safe and they are effective. And that's why I encourage everyone to make sure you get the vaccine. But talk to your doctor about it. Talk to your pharmacist, your family about it. That's the ones who you should be making a decision with, not the federal government. This is not between you and the government. This is between you and your physicians.
Yeah, it's this weird thing that in America we used to enjoy. It's called personal liberty and privacy. But, you know, I want to go back, and I'm going to call you doctor here instead of congressman because I respect your title on this. And the issue I want to know is, I want to back up to what, you know, a lot of people have had COVID, obviously, myself included. I had it. I was very fortunate. I had a headache for like a day, and I was fine. A lot of people are like me, where I'm 38 years old. I'm a pretty healthy guy, had it. My natural immunities, I believe, are like, I'm relying on them, and I trust them. Do people like me need to get this vaccine, or are we fine not getting it? There's been very little research published about this.
Well, that's true. Again, this is why I would suggest that you talk to your doctor about it and get his input or her input as to whether you should have it or not. We do know that those people who have gotten the vaccine have more immunity than what is built up through the natural immunity that you get by having the virus before. Look, vaccination is important. It's very important, and I would encourage everyone to do it. I'd much rather have the vaccine than to have the virus. There's no question about that. There is value to natural immunity. There's no question about that. However, I would rather be safe than sorry, and I'd rather get the vaccine.
Okay. So in the light of, you know, and that's fine. Like, look, my parents got the vaccine. Super. All right. Works for them. Great. I'm one of those guys, like, I don't even take Advil. So it's not that I'm suspicious about the vaccine. It's just that I don't really take anything. But on the backs of this, the mRNA technology has been publicized. I mean, look, it's been used for a little while, but it's recently been very publicized. Now, Moderna is preparing to begin human trials on an HIV vaccine as early as Wednesday using the same mRNA platform, which I don't even know what that is. Can you explain to us what mRNA is? Because people like me just know that it's like these tiny little things that you can't see inside your body.
Well, in the past, we've had to use the actual virus itself, but the mRNA gives us the opportunity to bypass that part of it, and that is a big advantage. And that's one of the reasons why the Operation Warp Speed was such a success. I can tell you, as a pharmacist, I know it usually takes 5-6 years for a vaccine to be developed. Now, because of a number of things, because we cut red tape, because it was all hands on deck, and we concentrated only on this virus and only on this vaccine, and because of mRNA, that's the reason we were able to come up with a vaccine so quickly. Now, I know that builds up some question in people's minds, the fact that it came out so quickly. However, I can attest to you, it is safe, it is effective. Yes, it is still under an emergency use authorization, and some people use that as an excuse not to get it. That's fixing to be lifted. I think that 1st of September, the FDA will lift that and approve it. And that will help some. It will take away one of the excuses, if you will, for people not getting the vaccine. But again, these are decisions that should be made between individuals and their physicians, their pharmacists, their family members, their religious leaders.
Yeah, it's almost like you have a medical degree. It's amazing. So Reuters is reporting that the Biden administration plans to extend requirements for travelers to wear a mask on airplanes, trains, and automobiles. And this is going to be throughout airports and train stations through January 18th of next year. I got to say, and this is one of the big things that I'm confused at. If social distancing works, why do we need masks? If masks works, why do we need, to shut down the economy? And if the vaccine works, why do we have to continue to do all the above?
Those are good questions, especially the fact that if you're vaccinated, why are you having to wear a mask? I agree with you. And I don't agree with mandates. I don't like mandates at all. And I think that the message that the Biden administration is sending here is a mixed message that is confusing people. I mean, what we should be telling them is that they should consult with their physician, consult with their pharmacist and family member to see about the vaccine. Not that, oh, if you're vaccinated, you got to wear a mask inside. That confuses people and only leads to diminish the importance of getting the vaccine itself.
Yeah. Well, we've had doctors on this network before who have said, like, hey, look, these mandates actually make people more hesitant. I mean, it's the same thing as like when Trump was in office, you had all these Democrats come out, including, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, say, oh, I'm not going to take the vaccine because Trump came out. It's not like Trump was like in the basement mixing with test tubes. And I think that the big hesitancy here is the fact that this is largely a technology people don't know about. And, we want to see some time on this. Do you have any idea what, like, the timelines are for these things to be socially accepted? Because I'm thinking like 2 years. 2 years, everything goes well, I'll probably consider it.
Well, I would like to think that we're getting closer, and that's true. And I think you make a valid point here because people are, they are hesitant, and I respect that and I understand that. But again, I'd much rather have the vaccine than to have the virus. And I'm telling you, I'm living proof of it. I went through the clinical trials myself. I wanted to set a good example as a healthcare professional, as a member of the Doctors Caucus in Congress. I wanted to do that, and I did that. And listen, I've been fine. I had no extra fingers, no extra toes, nothing. Everything's fine.
I mean, that sounds good. When I think altering DNA, all I can think about is Jurassic Park, and that didn't turn out so well for the humans. But that's just a joke. I'm not diminishing any of this stuff. All right, so Congressman Buddy Carter, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Sharing your thoughts on President Biden's decision to withdraw American troops from Afghanistan. Now, a decision we are now seeing the ramifications of, as disastrous as they are for the Afghan people. But what about the larger implications of a Taliban takeover? Joining us now to discuss, Louisiana Congressman Clay Higgins. Congressman, welcome to the program, and I'm sorry it's under these conditions.
These are very challenging conditions for America, no doubt. In a matter of just the course of a couple of weeks, our executive leadership out of the Biden White House has brought American foreign policy to the precipice of permanent ruin regarding our reputation and our recognition as a world leader across the globe. It's beyond weak, and it was treasonous leadership, is abhorrent, impeachable.
Yeah.
President Biden should resign over what's happening in Afghanistan right now.
Yeah, it is crazy. And like you saw, Kamala Harris bragged about being the last person. I would not have said that publicly. I mean,
she should resign too then.
Yeah, I mean,
she was part of this travesty of leadership, this absolute horrible failure of American executive leadership that has done arguably a generation of damage to America's reputation worldwide.
Yeah.
In a matter of a week or so. If Vice President Harris was a part of that decision, she should resign too.
Yeah.
They're both impeachable if they participated together in this decision.
Well, maybe that's why we haven't seen her at all during all this. Now, we saw a video of Afghans mobbing this airfield. I mean, these are people are desperate. They're trying to flee the country as the Taliban took over. I mean, some of them are even losing their lives. They're getting stuck in the landing gear. I mean, you tell me and this is what I love. You have these millennials here in America that are saying, oh, my internet's not fast enough and Twitter only allows me 240 characters and there wasn't enough milk in my latte. Yet you have people clinging to airplanes to get away from a murderous regime. And what is the complaint about the fact that they think America is so darn bad and that we are so darn good overseas, and yet we're leaving these people behind? What does this do for us on an international stage?
Well, the way it was done was quite contrary to what was negotiated last year. I've long supported withdrawing our boots on the ground out of Afghanistan. For years, I've stated this publicly. Withdrawing boots on the ground in Afghanistan does not mean that you're leaving behind your military capabilities. We have the most powerful Navy, Air Force in the world. We have very rapid response capabilities for the region. We have satellites watching everything that happens over there. So the withdrawal of our American men and women that actually have boots on the ground in Afghanistan. It should have happened long ago. President Trump negotiated a very effective agreement between the Afghan government that we had stood up and the Taliban. He courageously went to the table with them both, and he made it clear that the Taliban could participate politically. That's fine within the infrastructure of the Afghan government. But if they stepped out of line 1 inch, they'd get smashed by our military capabilities. And that's what President Biden abandoned. His advisors, whoever they are, because I don't think he's making these decisions, quite frankly, but his advisors, whoever they are, told him, don't do anything that resembles following the Trump plan, or that gives some credit to Trump. So he abandoned the needs and requirements and advice of our own intel, our own intelligence assets, and our military leaders in order to comply with his political advisors. And this is what you get when you elect a guy like that, or when you use fraud and enough votes to cover that fraud to get a guy like that inaugurated and into the White House. He should have never been in the White House, in my opinion. But he's there now. He's been inaugurated. He's the president of the United States, and he has led us to this disaster of foreign policy. And by the way, it mirrors what has been happening at the border since February of this year, since January the 21st. The cartels have taken over our southern border, and now we have the Taliban has taken over Afghanistan. This White House has got to go. By resignation or impeachment, they've got to go.
Most popular president in history. Don't forget that. Louisiana Congressman Clay Higgins, thank you very much for your time, sir.
Thank you, good sir.
Cases a Chinese professor by the name of Bo Mao, who taught at the University of Texas, charged with stealing technology from an American Silicon Valley startup last year and handing it over to Chinese people, basically. Telecommunications firm Huan Technologies, I guess. They're just one case, but there's like hundreds of these, maybe even thousands of them. Most people don't even know, and they're not caught, they're not prosecuted. So for more on this, let's bring in former Trump administration senior advisor Christian Whiten, and not Whitten. I got your name wrong in the T's before, but welcome to the show. I gotta ask here, and that's my bad. I've had you on the show before. I should definitely know your name. But our intelligence officials say that America's universities have become basically these soft targets, all right? And a significant amount of research is done, like pressing cutting-edge research is done at these universities, and it's not really well secured like it is if the military technology were to be developing, or the military system. So, what is happening here, and how do we stop this?
All right, it's really smart and pernicious and dangerous what the Chinese have done. And it was a shift. In the late 90s, you may recall, the Chinese were accused of stealing designs for miniaturized nuclear warheads from U.S. national labs. And that's sort of an obvious hard target, getting someone who has a Q clearance, one of the top clearances in government, to commit espionage and give obviously classified high-tech secrets to the Chinese. They shifted after that and focused on the large diaspora of Chinese nationals, some dual citizens, some just here on visas, who work for universities. And as you point out, it's a lot less secure than people who are working on obviously military applications, but so much in technology is dual purpose, and it's really widespread. You mentioned one case, but practically every week, I think the FBI is opening a counterintelligence investigation, and every month, practically, you hear about another professor. It's big name schools like Harvard and MIT, but really it's quite pervasive.
Well, speaking of Harvard, I mean, look, the smartest people in the country, well, allegedly the smartest people in the country, they didn't see this one coming. But, here's just, you were talking about Harvard, the chemistry department chairman, the chairman of the chemistry department was arrested by the FBI, charged about lying about a lucrative relationship with a Chinese talent recruitment program. A Chinese scholar at UCLA convicted in June of shipping banned missile technology to his homeland, and a Chinese student at the Illinois Institute of Technology charged last year with helping to recruit spies for his country's version of the CIA. I mean, intelligence officials say that this is, obviously this is horrible, but intelligence officials are kind of like behind the curve on this one. Did we miss the ball? Like, what did we do wrong here?
Well, basically, the universities don't want to see what they see. You have a shocking number. Before the pandemic, 375,000 Chinese students studying here in America. That's a third of all foreign students, and it's the biggest number by far. The next biggest is Indian Americans, and that's half the size of the Chinese. And these universities are absolutely drunk on Chinese money. All of them are making excuses, looking the other way, saying, oh, this is racism or profiling, and it's really not so bad. But as you point out, it is very bad because the number of cases and the advances that China has made are stunning.
Turns out they're stealing our technology. Weird. Who could have seen that coming? Now, we don't briefly.